So, this one's gonna be about something else, I guess. It might be a little bit of a different episode, it might be something new, it might be just another episode that is a little bit different. But yeah, more after the intro, as always. As every single day, because it's amazing. And now I'm actually pretty pumped for this episode, which I couldn't have said for the other episode that I've recorded today, and also the episode that I've recorded yesterday, or the two episodes that I recorded yesterday. But this episode is going to be a good one, and I do just somehow have a clue, and I do somehow know why it was the case, and or it might also be the case in the future. But yeah, before I even forget to mention, hello, welcome back to the next episode of the Self-Development with Tactics podcast. And the other thing that I have to mention is that you can listen to this particular episode that you're just viewing there. If you're on the YouTube video, you can also listen to this as a podcast. And it is insanely good, especially for those people that are able to learn through audio really well, which makes the whole thing effective. But it is also efficient because if you're listening to something, you can do anything besides that or simultaneously, which might be walking your dog, which might be cooking, which might be jogging, which might be working out. Of course, you can do that with the YouTube video as well, and if you're able to just use YouTube music and whatnot, but most people do not have this opportunity. And it's also going to be really, really good for your mobile data. If you're just on the go and you're not connected to a Wi-Fi network, then it's also going to be pretty good since the YouTube video is really big, Even though I'm uploading a 4 gigabyte or 2 gigabyte thing or file, it's going to be compromised just significantly, In the end, when I'm actually downloading my own videos, they're probably like 400 MB, 200 MB, something like that. But still, compared to the podcast, is like double the size. And this just really, it just really does make a difference. Even, the thing is, I'm uploading a 30. Is it a 30? No, it's somehow like a 70 megabyte file as a podcast. I don't know if the platform that I'm using to distribute the whole thing, if this is also compromising it a little bit or compressing it a little bit. I don't know that, This could actually also be the case, which makes the whole file even smaller. But yeah, this is going to be something different. It's going to be something else, and therefore we're just going to go through Seth's blog. Or the blog article that Seth is posting today, or was posting today, because I would have read it anyway. And I thought maybe I should talk about it, and maybe I should also read it, since it might also be really, really relevant and maybe even helpful to a lot of people out there. Therefore, I'm just reading it. And as always, the link is going to be down in the description and or in the show notes if you're on a podcast. And by the way, Seth's new podcast is just insanely good. Akimbo, it's akimbo.me if you want to just have a look at the website. It's just insane. It's just insanely good. It's just amazing to listen to it. And every day I'm listening to it. When I'm meditating, I just really tend to listen to it, even though I do not know if it's the best thing for me in terms of the whole meditation part, because I'm actually really focusing then on the podcast and not on my breathing or on anything else, which might not be the best thing and whatnot. And some other variables as well. But I'm gonna read. So this blog post is called All or Nothing. Projects often require tools. The right tools gets the job done, all of it, and an inferior one leaves it undone, or none of it. There is a spectrum of cost though. Tools require different levels of expense to purchase and use. If you use a cheap tool, you might end up with nothing. Use the right tool and you get the desired result. Because the cost of tools usually fills out a linear scale from cheap to expensive, we can be lulled into believing that the results are also on a linear level. But that's not true. You will need to spend enough to get anything at all. Less than that is total waste of time and also money. Better to use a tool that costs more than you expect Better to use a tool that costs more than you expect than to use a cheap tool and get nothing in return. It's actually pretty interesting, and it's also pretty true, I have to say, because of course there are quite a lot of tools outside there, especially also a lot of freeware and a lot of tools that are just for free, you can just download them. And I have to say, there's really really a lot of good tools that are free. Really, really, really a lot of good tools. Let's for example say Audacity. You might even be using it, for audio production and not just recording yourself. A lot of people are actually using it, and it is just a freeware. It is free software, and it's just insanely good compared to other software that is basically doing the exact same thing. It might not be as big in terms of the things that you can do with it. Like, of course, I'm normally using Audition, so Adobe Audition, and it just also looks better. The user interface is probably going to be better. Just most often when you're comparing something that you're buying and something that you can download for free, the user interface most often is just not that good. But it's not about the user face or the user interface. It's just about what you can do with it, and this is then what matters. And most often you're actually able to do most of the things with the freeware as well. Like in terms of Audacity, it's definitely the case. You can do some noise reduction, and you can just record yourself. I'm really not educated in Audacity or at Audacity, but I've used it for a little bit. At a point in time where I just needed it. I think I didn't have a license for my Adobe software anymore. Therefore, I just was I was somehow so forced to do that, even though I didn't want, But yeah, of course, there are going to be some functions that are not available in free software that you might be having in some paid software. But it could also just definitely can be the whole opposite. Like, of course, free software can also just be better and also have a better user interface than some bought things. This is definitely also the case, because I do not want to say that cheap things or free things are always going to be bad. It doesn't necessarily have to be the case, and this is also something that Seth said, at least I guess, because he said that there's a spectrum of cost though. Tools require different levels of expense to purchase and use. If you use a cheap tool, you might end up with nothing. Use the right tool and you get the desired result. Because the cost of tools usually fills out a linear scale from cheap to expensive, we can be lulled into believing that the results are also on a linear level. But that's not true. And I guess this just says that, if I'm understanding it correctly, like, if I'm wrong, just please hit me up or please just write it down into the comments. But I just believe that he just says there that even if the cost is on a linear scale from cheap to expensive, the results don't have to match that basically, because, at least it would make sense. And at least also by experience, I can tell that a lot of free software is really, really, really good. Like, if the result is going to be as good as with paid software, I don't know. I couldn't tell. The thing is, in terms of Audacity versus Adobe Audition, I have to say that Adobe Audition is just having some functionalities and is probably having just anything that you need to have. And it's working fine, it's working as fine as all the other Adobe software is working. It's just good. But I do not necessarily think that, of course, there might be some functionalities that that Audacity is not having. But it could also definitely be the opposite. Like, there's probably also some, like 1 or 2 or 3 functions or functionalities that Adobe Audition is not having, even though Audacity is having it. But yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say that the things that you record with Audition are going to be better than the things that you're recording with Audacity. Even though using Audition might be easier, since the user interface is a little bit better, at least at my point of view, especially if you're kind of used to the whole Adobe suite, then it's going to be way easier to just control and to use than Audacity is, because this is just a completely new environment. But as I said, I wouldn't necessarily say that the results are going to be better with Audition, but you might be faster and you might even be more efficient, but I'm also not really sure about that, because I don't know, I haven't used Audacity to such a degree, but I've only seen that a lot of people are using it, and for a lot of people it will be just what they need, and they do not really need more. It's just okay then, and they do not need Audition and or some other software that is costing way much more than free. Yeah, and this is actually it with the article of today. But I haven't read the whole one. I'm sorry. So, PS, the first lesson for the Freelancers Workshop went live this week. Today is a great day to join. We teach technique, but mostly we help you become more brave. So, if you're interested in the Freelancers Workshop, as I said, the link to this blog post is going to be in the description and also in the show notes. So please check it out if you also want to have a look at the Freelancers Workshop, because it could definitely be valuable and it could definitely be also worth it, worth checking out. I don't know, I haven't taken this workshop. But yeah, I think I'm also going to read the one from yesterday. It's called 2 Buttons on Offer. Yeah, 2 buttons on offer. Every person in your organization needs to wear a button. And they can choose one of 2. The choice is up to them, but they have to own it. One button says, I don't care. And the other one says, I would like to help. It's entirely possible that you have managed your way into a bureaucracy that acts like it's wearing the first button. If that's true, admit it and have you and your team put on the buttons. You will save a lot of heartache by telling us and your coworkers the truth. On the other hand, if you want the satisfaction that comes from wearing the second button, you've got to keep the promise. Yeah. I think so. If you would actually be this I would like to help person, or if you would like to wear the button, then you also have to do that, because if you're not doing it, you're probably I don't care person then, because it just makes sense, because it's common sense, you understand it, I know that. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. I gotta have to say that his blog posts are really diversified, one is not going to be the exact same as the other one and or the following one and or the previous one. They all are going to be different. Sometimes they are a little bit like of a cryptic thing, I don't really get them, since often it's just involving some metaphors and some metaphors and some ways to just describe things, which I do not then understand at the first glance, but after reading it and also after thinking about it, which might also be the intention of Seth Godin, I don't know. I'm getting it most often, I guess, at least, which is always kind of the funny thing, because I kind of think that I'm getting it, but I really don't know. I really don't know if I'm actually getting it. But yeah, maybe we actually head to the news, because I actually do want to just go through the news. I do just want to go through the news. And then actually have a look at what's popping, what's new, what's going on, those things. So let's see. But we're definitely also going to go to technology. I'm not really going to some other shit. Because I don't know. I do not like the normal news, because it's most often about some negative shit and some shit that I'm not really willing to kind of get immersed in, I guess. But yeah. So let's see. Pixel 4 XL teardown reveals remarkably tiny Soli chip. Nope, this one. Control your smartphone addiction with Google's experimental apps. Google just launched several new apps to help you spend less time on your phone. Watch Dogs. Legion new Rainbow Six delays to increase development time. It's always funny. It's always great to hear that. That's when you're waiting for a new game and it gets delayed just because they haven't been able to just make it in this most often really big time frame. It's always kind of interesting, it's always kind of fucked up, to be honest. Like, I don't know if their time management is just really fucked up often, because this is actually something that happens relatively often, I have to say, or I have to feel like in the gaming whole scene, in the whole gaming scene. It's been the case for a lot of games and for a lot of genres and for a lot of different publishers, but I don't know. Like, maybe this is just some sort of a virus that is in the whole gaming space, or this is just very specific to, for certain publishers and production teams and production firms. But I've also seen like a game was delayed 2 years or something, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, just a really, really, really long time. And I don't know, of course, for those people that are really looking forward to those games, which hasn't been the case for me actually. I have never actually been like, wow, there's the new game coming out on this and that day and I'm going to buy it just right ahead and whatnot. I have never been this person. My brother was a little bit like such a person, I guess, if I'm just thinking about it, but I'm not quite sure. But I have never been such a person. I've never actually wanted to just spend my money on things. It was always some kind of a fucked up thing for me. It really was, and it still is, because I'm really not spending my money on anything. On really anything, like nothing. I might be spending it on food, which is probably which is probably going to be the case. It's probably going to be the thing that I'm spending most of my money on, just because I need it. And then I'm also not going to just be like, okay, I'm going to buy me this and that and this and that and just as much as I want and what's not. I'm just always on a budget. I'm always trying to be on a budget. I'm always trying to just be as cheap as I possibly can by still kind of satisfying my needs and satisfying the things that I want. But it's not always going to be the case. I'm often just buying some cheap shit because this is also some sort of satisfaction for me, because I'm then satisfied that I've bought myself something that was cheap and is cheap and it feels good for me. And it doesn't really feel good for me if I'm just buying myself something that's really expensive, whether it be about food or whether it be about some technology things like a new smartphone or a PC or some of that shit. I've actually also been thinking about investing into a new microphone, because I thought like, it's going to make the whole podcast a little bit better and whatnot. But I have to say, as I've been also reviewing the whole audio and whatnot, I have to say that the audio with my phone, like, again, if you didn't know that, and if you're on the podcast and you're not able to see me, I'm recording this on my phone. I'm using my phone to record this, just using my PC and the phone, and this is it. And I gotta have to say that the audio is really, really, really good. Really good. It's really comparable to really big podcasts. I do also have to say that the post-production is definitely just impacting it heavily, because without the whole post-production, it wouldn't be as good. There would have been just a lot of background noise and a lot of those things that are really not that nice. And of course, through post-production, it could also happen that the whole audio is just getting fucked as well. For example, if the whole noise reduction process isn't working as I want it to work, it could also be the case that the whole audio is fucked, because as I'm seeing it, or as I'm just understanding it, the whole noise reduction thing is working like it's scanning a certain area, and it's scanning the noise, because if you haven't used anything like that, you're basically having to have in your audio some sort of a blank space where only the audio is in, unless you actually always recording in the same environment where there's just going to be the same noise as well, probably, but you're then just scanning this noise, and it's scanning the frequencies, the heights and the lows and all those things, and then it is actually subtracting those specific frequencies and those specific areas of the whole audio. And sometimes it happens that when you're scanning something that might not be only noise, but maybe some sort of a brief or something that you can't really see in the recording, because it's so silent, that it's not like a spike or something, that you might be scanning this as well, and that this is going to be distracted from the whole audio. And then of course there's going to be some weird sounding things, and there's going to be some things that you just notice, that there went something a little bit wrong, but that's not too bad. Something else that I'm just seeing is Google Stadia, exclusive to have features not possible on home hardware. So Stadia exclusives to have features not possible on home hardware. Okay. Apple TV app launches on Amazon Fire TV devices, which is actually pretty interesting, which is really interesting that Amazon is actually doing that, because they could also be like, well, no, there is no Apple TV app on our fucking device, there's only Amazon Prime, and this is what you can use there. And if you're willing to use something else, then just buy an Apple TV. But I guess it is also a pretty good move, because they understood that maybe a lot of people are going to go to Apple TV. And because Amazon has always been, and hopefully is always going to be, a consumer-centric company, They just thought like, well, let's have Apple TV on our Fire TV devices, or I think there's only the stick, isn't it? Like the Amazon Fire TV stick, but I'm not quite sure. The thing is, it just makes sense, if you're thinking about the consumer, if you're thinking about the people that are using your devices, then it definitely makes sense, and it definitely is actually a good move, at my point of view. But yeah, no open camera won't give you 4K 60 FPS on the Pixel 4. Okay. Photo editing basics, 6 tips for polishing and perfecting finished images. Google has achieved quantum supremacy, and here is why it matters. Quantum bests classical computing, so now what? This is actually something relatively interesting, I guess, at least. I'm always guessing, like I never ever know, but I'm also hoping. And this is actually from the Los Angeles Times. So Google claims quantum supremacy. What could that mean for the future of computing? For the first time ever, a quantum computer has performed a computational task that would be essentially impossible for a conventional computer to complete, according to a team from Google. Scientists and engineers from the company's lab in Santa Barbara announced the milestone in a report published Wednesday in the journal Nature. They said their machine was able to finish its job in just 200 seconds, and that's the world's most powerful supercomputer, would need 10,000 years to accomplish the same task. Like, let's think about that. What percentage is that? What percentage of being faster is that? Like, from 200 seconds to 10,000 years. Like, 200 seconds are 2 minutes? Am I right? Which is insane. The task itself, which involved executing a randomly chosen sequence of instructions, does not have any particular practical uses, but experts say the achievement is still significant as a demonstration of the future promise of quantum computing. William Oliver of MIT compared the feat to the first successful flight by the Wright brothers. It is what the event represents rather than what it practically accomplished that was paramount, he wrote in the commentary that accompanied the study. Google scientists are hailing the achievements as the first demonstration of what's known as quantum supremacy. The phrase was coined in 2012 by John Preskill, a theoretical physicist at Caltech, to describe the point at which quantum computers can do things that classical computers simply can't. No matter how powerful they are. Like, it is insane. Like, 10,000 years. I mean, like 10 years, this would just be incredible, but 10,000 years. And the thing is, like, let's actually think about that. What type of exercise, what type of task does it have to be? Like, if I'm also thinking about, rendering my video, like rendering a video, it's probably going to take like 30 minutes or something. It's actually relatively long. It really is relatively long because I'm using CBR, which is just a constant bit rate rather than a variable bit rate, because the video, I guess, is then a little bit better because the bit rate is always the exact same and it's not going to vary between or in certain segments of the video, which might kind of fuck with the quality a little bit. But it's just insane. Like, it takes me 30 minutes to just perform this task, and this computer just would do it in a millisecond, I guess. Maybe not even, it would just be as instant as it possibly could be, Well, I do also have to say, like, the thing is, even though the computer might be really fast, it doesn't necessarily have to mean that the software is also going to be optimized for this certain computer, because it could also be the case that, for example, my rendering process is still not going to be way faster, even though I'm using this super quantum mechanics thing computer, just because of the software. Just because of the software that I'm using to render the thing, which probably is going to be the media encoder from Adobe and or the Premiere Pro. Either one of those two things, but it's definitely maybe going to be the case that, or it's definitely possible that it might be the case that the software is somehow, some sort of a barrier between just the supercomputer and being extremely fucking fast, which is then fucked up. And I think, well, this is another discussion, just software and whatnot. How did you become interested in quantum computing? And there is now an interview, and I'm hopefully also going to link that down. If I haven't linked it down, then it is called Q&A. Google claims quantum supremacy. What could that mean for the future of computing, by the Los Angeles Times? And it was published on October the 23rd, which is yesterday, 2019 at 6:47 p.m. I should have linked it down, but as I said, sometimes I'm forgetting those things, which is fucked up, I know, but it is what it is. But yeah, I think it's actually going to be the end of the episode, and it's been a pretty good time, and it's been a little bit better, because I think it's because I have eaten something, and I'm not eating really a lot over the day, because I'm just being in school, and I'm fasting, and all those things, and I'm then not having some food available, and I'm having to do so many things and whatnot. So often it is just the case that I'm not able to eat something, and maybe I guess this is actually kind of building a barrier between me and just being good at speaking, or just letting my brain work on its highest level, which might be the case for speaking in a foreign language as fluent as possible. But yeah, I don't know. It is what it is, and I do just have to figure out what it is so that I'm able to kind of shut that down. Hopefully going to be able to shut that down. But yeah, I wish you the best health, of happiness, and also success. And I also hope that you're going to remind yourself when you're going to be remembered, which basically means your legacy, because we can definitely stimulate our legacy, which means, for example, being a nice person and then being remembered as a nice person, which is definitely something that can be true, but it's not going to be the case for everyone. Not everyone's going to like you, and not everyone's going to love you, because we're 7.7 billion people on this planet. There's going to be maybe even 1,000 people that do just not like you, just by nature, and just because you're you and they are them, and it's actually going to be more about them than it's about you. It's just what it is. But yeah, 3 other questions that I hope that you're going to ask yourself are: why are you here? What are you trying to why are you here? What are you trying to change, and what is bothering you the most? And those 3 questions are hopefully going to show you your purpose, and maybe even a business idea, because often businesses started out with fixing something and or finding a solution for something that really pissed the founders off. And that is definitely going to be something for you as well, and then, it's not solved yet. Therefore, maybe you're just solving it, and that's then it. And yeah, I would really like to see you again, so please subscribe to the podcast and also subscribe to the YouTube video. It would really mean a lot to me, and I'm gonna see you the next time, I at least hope.